Hey, what is up, guys? Chillrogg here. Welcome to the first inaugural episode of Esports and Content Creators. I'm really pumped to be here today with NotParadox. If you guys don't know him, NotParadox is the biggest YouTuber in all of Heroes of the Storm, a powerhouse shoutcaster. Some people don't know that. Casting in the CCL, Chili Mountain events, NGS events, a whole bunch of things. And then when he's not doing that kind of stuff, he's actually pursuing a degree in neuropsychology. So that's pretty insane. NotParadox, great to have you, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me. I mean, I'm very excited for this podcast. I'm even more excited that I'm on the first episode. So I really appreciate it. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It should be cool. So the idea behind this podcast is sort of, more the people behind esports and content creators discussing like a little bit of like the meta. Sometimes we get into nitty gritty, like the what's going on, like maybe talents and like that stuff, but it's more of like a broader kind of a view. And yeah, you're a perfect person. You're a content creator and involved in esports. You got both boxes. And then also, Sidkitten is our co-host. Sidkitten's vice president of Chili Mountain. If you don't know her, she's really awesome. Sidkitten, how are you doing today?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I guess just jumping right into it. So how you doing lately? Are you playing Here's the Storm? What kind of games you playing these days? In the NotParadox stuff?
I always play Here's a Storm. It's just one of those things I always go back to. I mostly play on a Smurf these days. Smurfs are around the same rank anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's just nice that I don't have to, like, if I'm testing a new build or something, I don't have people like, I played a NotParadox. It was awful. Yeah. That's the main reason why, is just mainly that. I definitely still play Heroes of the Storm. I've gotten into a lot of other games here and there. Like I've been playing a lot of Shadowlands. That's finally kind of dropping down for me a little bit. Nearing like item level 200, and there's just not a lot left for me to do.
What did you go with?
Oh, I went with Maldraxxus, the Necrolords.
Cool. That was my second choice. I like that one.
Yeah, I went Guardian Druid, and like initially Night Fae was kind of nerfed, and so I picked mine, and then they buffed Night Fae, and I was like, okay. And then a lot of people were like, well, maybe you should go Kyrian. I was like, yeah, but Kyrian's abilities seem to only really help other people.
That's no
and I was like, I'm going Necrolord. But now I'm like kind of regretting a little bit. I'm like, man, I could go Night Fae. But changing it, you lose so much stuff. It's like all of my people on my like adventure table are like level 30. And I'm like, well, if I change, I'm gonna lose all of those levels that I've spent like the last, I don't know, month building. It's kind of weird, but I'm Necrolord right now on my Druid.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I was going with I'm much more casual, it sounds like, than you in Shadowlands. I'm going with the vampire guys, Vethromir or whatever.
Oh yeah, Venthir, they're pretty cool.
I used to be like a super like World of Warcraft neckbeard, like 14 hours a day, like in the college days when I was just hanging, and I would just grind Mists of Pandaria for hours and hours. These days, though, it's mostly like HOTS if I have time, and then WoW is just like when the expansion comes. I'm like the casual now. You come in for the expansions, and then you go out back and forth.
Yeah, no, I feel that. That's how I usually am with WoW. Really, is I after like Wrath, that was the one that like we were doing week first. We got a world first too, and like we were going crazy with it.
World first, wow, that's cool.
It was on Trial of the Champions or Trial of the Crusaders. Can't remember. I always get those two mixed up. But yeah, we were killing it. But like since then, I pretty much just play until the first raid, and then I usually take a break until the second raid. And that's kind of where I'm at again. For some of my psychology work, though, I've actually gotten the opportunity to work with some teams for League of Legends and Rainbow Six. So I have actually had to been playing a lot of those lately. League, I've been playing a little bit more of. Rainbow Six is one that I'm awful at, absolutely awful at. But
I'm bad at League.
But I have to at least play it to get a good idea of how everything runs.
Yeah, so I thought my Here's the Storm skills would transfer 1-to-1 in League, and it's just not the case.
There's a lot of a lot of it will, but you need to kind of get past all of the things that are different first before you can start pulling over everything that's the same.
Yeah.
The biggest things are like there's a lot of little things that make it feel awkward because it's still a different game. One of the most basic ones that always bothers me is in Heroes of the Storm, your basic attack triggers first, and then the time in between your next basic attack will start counting down. In League, if you right click on a target, it has to go through that time first, and then it attacks. And something as simple as that, like if you only play one of the games or the other games, you'll never know that. And it makes it to where if you only play League and you switch to HOTS, it feels awkward. If you only play HOTS and switch to League, it feels awkward.
Yeah.
And especially in League when it's such a last hitting game, for people switching from HOTS to League, they're like, last hitting feels impossible. When in reality, people that just get used to League, they're like, oh no, it's super easy. Like you just play the hero enough and you'll be okay, or the champion enough and you'll be okay.
We have our Ragnaros quest, we have our Asmodan thing, but it's I don't know, it's never something I encounter, not that often.
Yeah.
So Sidkitten, did you want to go into the kind of the YouTube questions?
Yeah. So, what you're most known for is being a super big YouTuber, specifically in the hot space. So can you just take us back and tell us how you got started on YouTube? Where did that come from initially? How did you plan, or was it just kind of spur of the moment that you started uploading videos?
So between this channel and a few other channels, I'd always been kind of uploading videos, but it's mainly just light guides here and there for things that were just common things that maybe a guild for a game that I was playing. Just basically, they never were meant for a lot of people. And I for the last 8 years or so, I've been working marketing, and one of the groups that we worked with, they wanted a marketing book based on how to make money online or how to make money with social media. And so I was working on this book and I was doing research in each of the areas. And in order to prove that the book worked, I was going to go do it. So I made money on Facebook. I made money on Twitter. I made money on Instagram. I made money on a couple different of those apps like Fiverr and Etsy and stuff. And then I went over to YouTube, and it's a bit of a longer process because to make money naturally on YouTube, you have to be approved with AdSense, which can take 6 months. So I was like, I'm not going to do this for a while. And same thing with Twitch. It's you need to get affiliate, and then you need to start getting subscribers and stuff. And the same thing, I was like, I'm not really going to work on that right now. I probably won't end up doing it for that end because people already know you can make money on YouTube and Twitch. Then I've been playing a lot of Heroes of Storm, and I kind of got inspired by some of the other content creators out there at the time. And I was like, the people that they're helping really appreciate it. And I was like, I could do this and I can help people too. And I do think that there's still a lack of knowledge in the game. And so I started off with one video just to kind of see if people wanted to see more of the technical or more of things that were easier to follow. And so I made a couple videos to start. And the first one was it was a Stukov combo. And it was just showing people Stukov was gaining some popularity at the time, and everyone was liking him because of that root combo. But I added one more step to it. When you root people, you lose your heal. And since you're rooting people at the start of a fight, that's kind of the worst time to lose your heal. Because when you pop your trait to root someone, your heal gets popped as well. So what I was doing was I was showing people that you could use that combo without losing your heal if you can time it correctly. And so I gave people a thing to practice in try mode to get used to healing people without losing that heal, and doing that combo. And so I started that off. It was technical, got a decent amount of views, and I was like, let's use that I just got a little bit of popularity, and let's also go with the next video. And this is kind of basing it off of that original guide that I wrote in the book that I was testing off, was just making sure that there's a whole plan with your YouTube. And so from there it just started building, and I started doing 4 mistake videos. So all the heroes that you're trying to get into, or the heroes you've been playing for a long time, now you might know some mistakes that you could be making. And it's a bit of a clickbait title, but you end up still getting the information throughout it. So it's not really like a clickbait. It's just like a baity title to get you in. But overall,
the value's there at the end, though.
The value's there. You always get the information. And that was really based off of, because I had already been, and I guess I kind of skipped this part, but even before I was into content creation, I was an analyst for a couple pro teams. And so, yeah, so I was actually paid to work with pro teams, if very little, albeit nowhere near as much as the time I put in. Cool. But that was still something really fun. And so I was working with these pro teams before as a content creator. And I was like, this is some knowledge that I could bring out. And that's where I did the 4 mistakes, is because I was watching low-level streamers play these heroes, and then I was watching these professional players play these heroes, and I went, okay, well, the professionals never do this. Let's see if that's actually a mistake, or if that's just something that's there. But basically, if a professional player never does something and everyone else does, it's probably a mistake. And so then I kind of wanted to look at the areas of why that was a mistake. And I grew off of that. And then my channel really started to explode when I started doing the why the pros play. And again, I was already analyzing these. So I already had all the replays. I already had everything. And it was so easy for me to go into this because I'd already been analyzing these. And so it was just kind of a natural progression into that. And that's really where my channel kind of went. And then I kind of got to put a little bit more of my own heart into it, which is the psychology videos. That's been a passion for me for a long time. In fact, before I even started my YouTube, I started back in school. And because I took a wild break of school, about 4 or 5 years of a break from school, and I started back up. And so it was a passion of mine. I was just getting into like the actual real grit of psychology in school. Got past all like the boring stuff, started getting into that. And I was like, I want to implement this into every aspect of my life. As you get into any new passion or hobby, that's kind of how it is. You want to just integrate it into everything. Yeah. So I decided to try out one video, and then people liked that video. And I started trying to like put little bits into other videos, and people liked that. Yeah.
A period where there was a bunch of psychology and climbing, like the psychology of getting higher rank in game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of my dream channel at the time, was gaming, psychology, and kind of merging the two together. And then after I finished one of my degrees and I started moving on to another degree, the next school that I was on was a lot more intense. And so my schedule got a little bit harder to always come up with the little things to add to it. So I kind of started getting more in a formula, still very educational content, but it wasn't exactly where I was. But that's basically the story of how my channel grew. It was originally kind of it was a test to prove that the book idea worked, which it's a book that I haven't worked with that client in so long. I never actually got it published through them, which is probably better because I ended up seeing a lot of success from it. Yeah. And I can do it under my own name later if I want to, or I could just leave it unpublished. But I wanted to test every idea in there. And then it was also a mix of just, I was inspired by other content creators, particularly Kala. I don't know if anyone really remembers Kala, but
Tempo Storm Caster.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely inspired me to get going and to have everything to actually start making content for Heroes of Storm as opposed to some of the other games that I had played. But yeah, no, and the community was just a great community. They're just such a fun group of people and everyone's so encouraging. I mean, we even see it with the esports events that are going on right now. I mean, every esports event, they're raising money. Every charity event, there's charity events for HOTS. I feel like
GGS a lot. I feel like.
Oh yeah, all the time, and it's awesome. I mean, it's such a great community for that. So yeah, that's pretty much the story of how I got to, I guess, the middle of YouTube, and then lately it's just been keeping it going, and I've been a little bit more busy lately, so fewer videos than I normally did, because when I was initially doing YouTube, I was doing a video every day or every other day.
That's
for
insane.
for almost a year, from like the start of 2018 to the end of 2018. It was
That's so impressive. Wow.
Yeah, it was something like 221 videos or something in that entire year.
Wow. So I feel like
it was crazy.
I feel like there's a ton to unpack there. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first thing is I never realized, like, I've watched your videos for a while just to, like, you know, I'm like, oh, my Vala sucks. Oh, NotParadox is a Vala video. I need to watch this, or like whatever. And then I never realized you were an analyst for pro teams. Was that in the Heroes of the Storm space, or was that a different game beforehand?
I've done a little bit with both. I was an analyst with Magic the Gathering for a bit. That was all unpaid, but I did get to work with some pretty cool people. And then I switched into Heroes of the Storm. I got to work with a couple different teams, but the big one was Dignitas.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, I got to work with them quite a bit, and cool. And then from there, it's just been kind of it was just a fun opportunity. It was one of those where I messaged a few different teams and I was like, hey, I've been analyzing a lot of gameplay. Like, can I do it for free to start off? And then see if you guys like it, like, would it be something that we can continue? And I did it for a couple different teams, and a few of them got back to me and they're like, yeah, if you'd like to keep doing it, we can't pay analysts a lot. Like, we don't really get paid a lot. And so that was something that I learned, was it's like even the coaches weren't really getting paid a lot during HGC. So it was nice to kind of understand the inner workings of that. But yeah, that was my initial start into really deep diving into Heroes of the Storm. Was primarily analyst, and then moved into that. And then there was even a point where I was an analyst with Blizzard. And I was working on videos with Blizzard. And it was at the end of HGC. I got contact. I actually got contact about 4 months beforehand, and I had to get all of these videos ready. I had to submit a couple of them. I got approved as an analyst for them, and then they said, okay, next HGC season, starting with Midsummer Brawl, we're gonna get you going. And then and I had the contract and everything, and then HGC hit, or HGC dropped, and it was like, I messaged the guy that brought me on, Kurt, and he's like, I'm on the Hearthstone team now. I can't help you. And I was like, no worries. I'm at least glad you didn't lose your job, because that was around the same time. I was like, as long as you've got a job, I'm okay.
There's so many stories like that. Like all the teams that won the Crucible. I think that's the very worst. Winning the 2018 Crucible.
Oh, it's rough for them for sure.
But yeah, so that's unfortunate. But also, so something else I wanted to touch on that you mentioned. And your early videos had these too, this kind of combination of psychology and climbing. Maybe, is there any like tips you can give for anyone in ranked, like, you know, this kind of psychology trick or this psychology knowledge is could help you get from whatever, a little higher, silver to gold, or anything like that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, psychology's in our day-to-day lives, literally everything that we do, you're being affected by psychology. Even down to the way you brush your teeth is based off of a set of behavioral kind of like pieces, reinforcements, that you used to brush your teeth in one way, and then it might have hurt your gums slightly, so then you've moved your arm a little bit to the side, and then you forget why you've done it that way, but it's been reinforced by your subconscious forever. So literally every aspect of your life is kind of controlled by your subconscious in some way. Wow. But with that being said, there's probably 3 major tips I would give for using psychology to improve. Like a true YouTuber. Yeah, I mean, here's your 3 tips. But I do think there's probably like 3 tips. Okay. Number one, by and large, the one tip I think, and this is for every single game, and none of these are going to be really game specific, but the number one tip is understanding locus of control and trying to have an internal locus of control. So locus of control is a fancy psychology and philosophy term that pretty much means, do you feel like life is more in your control or more out of your control? And let's say that there's 3 people that are all going for one job. One person gets promoted, and the other 2 people are not. Let's say person A has an internal locus of control. They would say, you know what, I probably could have showed up to work a little bit earlier. You know what, I probably could have I could have gotten that degree that I was thinking of getting over the last 2 years that probably would have allowed me to be more qualified. I could have taken initiative and brought out that project that I've been thinking about for a while. That person one is only looking internally, all the things that they could have done differently and what they could have done that would have set them aside. Person B says, oh, well, that person that got promoted was sleeping with the boss.
Gotcha.
And so person B might be correct. I mean, you never know. That could be the reason that there was actually the promotion. But the big difference is that person A is going to make huge differences in their life and potentially just get a better job in another area because of all of these better changes that they've made. Where person B made an excuse and will never improve. And that's kind of the number one thing that can happen in games where you see a reason why you lost that game and you don't look to improve anymore. You could be right. Sure, the Leoric with 39 deaths probably is the reason that you lost that game. But if there's something that you can find to improve about every single game, you'll find yourself significantly improving whether or not there was a reason for that loss. So having an internal locus of control is really the fastest way to improve, not only in your game, but also in your life. You always need to look at what you could have done differently. Sure, there's a lot that you can't control everywhere else, but the things that you can control is huge. The second thing I would say is how we learn. We've known for a long time that the ways we learn are primarily on if we use that material quickly, we're more likely to learn it. So in school, the way we learn is not really that efficient. We tend to learn something, then learn more stuff, and then learn more stuff, and then we're tested on it. When in reality, video games actually handle things really well. You learn something new in a tutorial, and it's like, and now do it. And then you have to do it. And so video games actually have been handling education better than we have in real life. But to add that, there's two other methods of learning that video games don't really teach very well, which the first is repetition. The more you repeat something, like it's the same thing. If you're meeting someone named John, it's kind of a joke, but it's like if you're meeting someone named John and you're trying to remember them, you might say in your mind like, hey, John, 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 John. And now you have a higher chance of remembering that person's name with their face because you're looking at their face, thinking in your mind their name repeatedly. And it's kind of tricking your brain into thinking that you need that information when you really might not. But that's the first thing. Repetition's a really great way to do it. And the other way is association. There's this guy that does a TED Talk, and if I remember his name, I'll send it to you guys so you can post it on like the podcast info or whatever. But there's this guy, he does a TED Talk, and he teaches the audience like 110 random words. And it's been getting more and more. I actually sat in on this TED Talk when it was at 37 words. And he would teach the audience these 110 words, and they were all random words. And he would pull a random member from the audience after like 30 minutes later and say, what were the random words in the order I gave them to you? And a lot of the audience members could get pretty far into those words. When it was at 37 words, he was able to pull 5 different audience members and remember all 37 of those random words. And the way he does it is association. He creates a story and he emphasizes the words in those stories. So all people need to remember is the story. And so the second tip that I would give to people is repetition and association. Play 1 or 2 heroes if you're really trying to improve. Drop your roster pool down and focus on 1 hero. You'll be repeating the actions, you'll be practicing things, and you'll start associating extra knowledge into this hero. So what that means is you'll run out of things to learn on, let's say you played Cassia, nothing but Cassia. You're going to get to the point where you don't miss your cues anymore. You're going to get to the point where you have the order of your abilities correctly, and you're going to know exactly how much damage your basic combo does, like Q, W, E, Q, auto attack or something. Like you'll get an efficient combo, and you'll understand how much it does, and you go, okay, well, anyone at 30% health I can kill. So now we're just getting everyone drop down a little bit, 30% health, boom, get a kill. Now you've learned everything that there is to know about Cassia, and if you continue to play Cassia, then this is usually the problem: is a lot of people stop, play a different hero, and then they start to lose the information that they had on Cassia, and they're never really learning more. But if you continue to play Cassia, you're solidifying the information that you've just learned, and you're also learning more about the map, the macro, and everything else there is to know about the game. And the same is true in every other game. If you focus on a small bit of detail until you've learned about all of that, it's easier to learn more about stuff and solidify the information that you've learned. It's the same reason that when you first start driving a car, it's chaotic. There's a million things to pay attention to, and you're still getting so much wrong. Yeah. And so now, once you've gotten all of that down, everything's handled by your subconscious except for basically where you're going. And that's the biggest thing about it is with playing one hero or one champion or whatever game it is, you keep repeating that. So much starts moving into your subconscious, and so much you get better at that you can kind of experience so much more of the game. And so by far, that's the second tip that you could use psychology for. And the third one is really just try to look introspectively, not looking internally. More of understanding yourself a little bit. And this sounds really existential. It's not. It's more of can you realize when you're tilted? Can you realize when you're tired? When you're not at your 100%, not only do we not learn well when we're hungry, when we're tired, when we're angry, but we also don't do things correctly. And so a lot of times I recommend people, when I'm working with a team and they brought me on as a psychologist, I will tell them, I'm like, get a journal. Start writing down in the morning how much sleep you got. Start writing down what you've had to eat, what you've had to drink, and then you're gonna put all that in an Excel sheet. You're gonna send it over to me, and I'm gonna look for any patterns. Okay, well, and also how your performance was in game. Did you move up in rank? Did you not? Did you what were your stats? Throw it all into an Excel sheet, and I'll go through and I'll go, okay, well, every day that you got less than 7 hours of sleep, you performed a lot worse. Every day that you didn't have caffeine in the morning, you performed a lot worse. Now, I don't really want to encourage people to have caffeine every day, but if that's something that you like is caffeine and it happens to allow you to perform a little bit better, then that's something I'm going to bring up. And then same thing, every time that your mood was a little bit bad, this happened. And then I can also bring up, well, after this amount of games, your performance starts to fall off, which means you get exhausted after about 4 hours. And so what ends up happening is no matter what game you're playing, you end up with a prime time and a prime set of things to do beforehand. Well, you don't need to be a psychologist. You just need to be able to have a journal and pay attention. And as long as you do that, you can find yourself improving. So by far, my third tip would be just look internally and just start thinking of watch yourself in the best way that you can without any bias and just go, what could I do differently? And what times or what things have I done that's allowed me to perform better?
Those are great. I feel like... Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Sid.
So you were able to get pro players to fill out this sheet every day and have a journal? I've had pro players do even crazier stuff. There was there's a conversation I had with a couple teams because I'm currently trying to build a study at the moment, and I'm trying to see how much blood flow to your brain will increase gaming performance. And so I've gotten teams to sign up and say that they would perform 15 minutes of yoga before they start playing a match. And so you'd be surprised if you just ask teams and you say, hey, this might improve your performance. You might get better at the game. You'd be surprised how many people would sign up to do some crazy stuff. So it's definitely one of those things.
Have you seen results? Does blood flow to the brain increase? It sounds like it would.
I mean, everyone will see. It's definitely something that I think that would work, but I haven't gone through that study yet. It's just something that I'm getting teams together that are willing to do it, and I'm getting all of this stuff worked out for it. But the way that I'm gonna have to track it's a little different because a lot of variables are within the games, so I have to test it in a way that has fewer variables. So for example, if people generally play a shooting game, I'm not going to have them go into their normal game to play. I'm going to have them go into a trainer program where it's easier to track. Like, you're able to hit so many targets in a certain amount of time. Now let's wait 3 or 4 days. Let's have you wake up and do yoga, and let's do the same trainer program and see if those results are a little bit different. And that's how we're going to play it out. So it's not, because I mean, again, a million variables go into HOTS. It would be hard to track the exact result.
Yeah. Is there a Smurf on the other team? Did you
get
a disconnect in your lobby? Yeah, like a million things.
Mm-hmm.
Comp garbage, whatever.
I'm just impressed you're able to get a player to like fill out a form and like do something.
It's hard sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. You know, sometimes it just depends on the teams too. Like if you're working with a team that has, I mean, they're getting paid a salary. Like at the point that the teams can afford to pay me, they're paying their players a lot, and so they know that there's going to be a lot of stuff they don't want to do because there's a lot of pay on the line. And when a huge portion of it comes down to that. When I was getting into this and showing people that I do stuff like this, of course I did a lot of this for free, because I needed to be able to show people what I can do. And it's a lot harder to get people to do things. And it's unfortunate that it comes down to stuff like that. But that is oftentimes the case. Is when there's money on the line, people are willing to do a lot more than they normally would. But that is the case, and the amount also matters. But it's just dumb. I don't know.
Yeah. And do you practice yoga yourself, or how did that come to you?
You know, I have done a little bit. I have very basics of stuff. I do a little bit of Tai Chi, a little bit of meditation, just because those were things that initially when I was getting into psychology, I thought were just like bunk, right? I thought they were all just like BS. None of those things worked at all. And when I started getting into psychology, you'd be surprised at how many studies there are saying these actually do improve blood flow to the brain. These actually do improve your mood. They improve your overall feel. And there's so many studies out there for these. And they also just help with your physical health. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try them out. So I do a little bit of that. Not as much as probably should, but I do yoga about every other week. And then I do Tai Chi about once or twice a month, and meditation probably once a week. And just a little bit here and there can certainly add up to helping you out. So it's just one of those things. It's like you see a few studies of something being good and you're like, all right, I'll try it out. And then you just try to stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to your YouTube content a little bit, your most recent content has started to have more of an emphasis on the pro scene. So do you feel like there's a HOTS resurgence that's causing this, or can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a little bit of getting back to roots. I did do a lot of like the why the pros play in the past, but I do think there is a bit of a resurgence. I mean, to me, it feels a bit reminiscent of like 2015, where the tournaments were just starting to grow to the point that there were like LAN events, and these were LAN events that were originally hosted by like third-party organizations, and then Blizzard just kind of threw a little bit of money in, and my thought was, we could definitely get back to that. And I know a lot of people listening to this will say, oh, but Blizzard's not going to be throwing any money into this, except that they already have. So the Heroes Hype Premier Series was given $40,000 by Blizzard to run that event. And so
that was in
I actually don't know if I say what.
That was in 2015?
No, so that was in 2019 after HGC had dropped.
Okay, I checked out a little bit. 2019.
No, that's fine. So originally the World Series game was run, and it was given money by Blizzard to run it, and that was in 2015, and that's happened in 2019. And I think that's all we need is just more of this third party representation growing for Blizzard to go, okay, maybe we're not going to run a full HGC again, but we could sure cover maybe just the prize pool, or we can cover maybe just the player salaries, or we can just cover this. And if you guys want to cover everything else, that's on you. And I think this is kind of the start of what I remember seeing tournaments like this in 2015. So I think that's part of the reason is it's content that I enjoy making, which is the competitive content. And I do think that we're seeing a lot more of that. My viewership hasn't gotten back to where it was during HGC, but that's okay. If the game seems to be growing, then I'm always happy.
That's really interesting. I definitely agree that would go a huge way, and it wouldn't be a ton of effort for Blizzard. Just like a little sprinkling on top, like a little extra money, or maybe put us on the launcher or put CCL on the launcher or big events like that. They could do just like a little thing, a little bit here and there, and it would push the scene a ton.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be cool if they got back to that, or if that trend you're seeing is going to repeat itself. That'd be awesome. So continuing a little bit, I guess we talked about your channel a little bit. Are there any like nuggets for the future of the channel you can drop, or you don't have to, disclose anything you're hiding or anything, but just out of curiosity, any future kind of cool content we can expect? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to bring back in a lot of the psychology content. Many of the studies that I'm running, I hope to just do like a quick video about. I think that'd be cool. I think that just little bits in videos I want to do a lot more of. And I also want to do a lot more on just esports in general. I've been, I got elected and certified as a psychologist, and that was a pretty big thing for me. And I've been working as an esports psychologist on and off. I actually just got a team that's currently writing a proposal to hire me full time. And so it's been something that I've really been working on and working hard on, and researching all of this, compiling all of this information. So I do want to bring more of that to the channel, explain more about what a psychologist does, an esports psychologist does, and kind of just break down the different pieces of it. See if people like that content. If they do, I'll do a lot more of that. But that's kind of the major piece of it. That I want to start moving towards. Naturally, I'm still going to be making Heroes of the Storm content because it's a game I enjoy, and that's what the majority of my followers like to watch. So that's always going to be there. And with that, I did a tier list back in like the end of last year, or the end of the year before last year, the start of 2020. I did a tier list to kind of give people an idea of the best heroes to climb. I generally don't like tier lists because they're usually a little too general, so I'm making a specific tier list on climbing. In the last year, I've done 4 Bronze to Masters, which I don't really like those, but I did it because I wanted to see if you could still do it in every single role. Yeah. So I did 1 of each role. And so I'm going to do another tier list with that new information and kind of go over the heroes that I think would be the best to move up in rank with. And so that's going to be probably the big video at the start of this year, even though I'm a little late 'cause it's 10 days into this year. But that's the big video that I'm going to be working on soon. And then after that, it's going to be just a lot of the same stuff, and then a little bit of peppering in of like psychology content. And I may end up doing another one of the like the Ultimate Champion guides or whatever. I brought out that URL guide with Liam. I'm currently talking to someone for another one. So that's kind of the what's going to be happening the next couple months probably.
Okay, that's really cool. So yeah, definitely a little bit to unpack there too. I guess that's kind of a huge deal. So I knew you were in the process of getting your degree just because it kind of comes up once in a while in your videos. You kind of hear like a little side. But I didn't realize you made it full time. So that's amazing. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm still going to be in school for a while, but I did get I got certified in, and and now it's just a matter of the marketing work that I have. A lot of the clients and traveling that was done with this company can't be done because of COVID. So I was going to take a little bit longer before moving into that scene, but with a little bit of the financial side happening on that end, I was like, I think now's the time to at least look. And I messaged a few different teams. One of the teams that I wasn't expecting came back to me, and they're like, hey, we were actually just looking for a manager, but they're like, this would be awesome if you could be a psychologist and just do some of the managerial tasks on the side. And I was like, I could do that. And they're like, because they're like, we only have one team right now, so there probably wouldn't be enough work. to do that. But they're like, our plan is to have like 4 or 5 teams under the same name. Kind of the same way Chili Mountain has a League of Legends team, and here's a Storm team, and you also have the Academy team. And it's like, that's kind of what they want to get up to. And
so you'd be a psychologist for a few teams, and then kind of team manager responsibilities would go out when it's too overwhelming with all
pretty much. Yeah. So that's so I start off as a psychologist and a manager, and then when the when we pull in all the rest of the teams, they'll hire a manager for all the teams.
Cool. So I don't know why, but I kind of pictured in my mind like one day like you in a hospital, like whatever, doing psychology stuff. But are you going for more like of a full-time combination of the esports and psychology hybrid, or are you going traditional career path eventually?
Honestly, I haven't had a lot of intentions of actually being a clinical psychologist, meaning going in an office and doing that. I've always been more on the eyes of, to be honest, I like teaching. My whole plan was being a professor, and then
I could see that.
Yeah, and just writing books and teaching students, and that was pretty much my be all end all goal. The Here's the Storm stuff, while it did eventually get to the point that it could completely pay my bills, that was never my intention. In fact, I do a lot less sponsorship stuff than most other channels of my size. And I even try not to run as many ads as the channels of my size. I had one video that the automatic system bugged out, and it was playing an ad. It was playing 2 ads every other minute. So in a 30-minute video, they got 30 ads, and I went, this is awful. And so I had to go and manually remove ads from the next 4 videos because the system was bugged out. But I don't run as many ads as other channels of my size, and for the length of the videos, it's never really been that. It's always just been trying to get good content out for everyone. And the extra money is just kind of an incentive to keep me going. But yeah, my plan has been be a professor forever. And that's why I'm going to continue getting, my goal is 2 PhDs, and also to already have out a book, so that I've got a good way into a tenured track position, is that I already have a book out. I've got 2 PhDs. I'm all in there. So I'm in for a lot of school, and I've got to work on more related books. So that's kind of my whole plan with that. If the YouTube thing ends up blowing up and I'm just this huge like psychology connected with gamer idea and stuff, then I mean I could continue doing that. But yeah, for right now, my be all end all goal is a professor.
Okay, that's really cool. I never realized that. That is super interesting. So I guess maybe skipping ahead a little bit here, maybe we could touch on some kind of like Heroes of the Storm news, kind of your thoughts about it, kind of what's going on. I know Masters Clash is coming up, and you kind of mentioned, we're getting to the point, or you're kind of seeing this recurring trend of HOTS is bubbling up, and it's getting to the point where we're having LAN events. This could be one of our first big LAN events. What are you thinking about Masters Clash? I don't know if you've heard, it's sort of like, it started as a tournament, and it's sort of turning into a league, kind of. It's happening like once, for anyone who doesn't know, Masters Clash is an EU league. It's happening once a weekend for, I think, 6 months, from January 23rd to the middle of June or so. So pretty interesting. And there's a big LAN tournament at the end. It might be July, don't quote me. So what do you think? Do you kind of see that as like one of the first? And CCL, of course, is massive. Yeah. Prize pool is bigger than Masters Clash. Do you see that as kind of like a good sign?
Yeah, for sure. I think that CCL kind of pushed Masters Clash to get a little bit more serious, because CCL does not want to run a tournament in Europe, and it's been something that's been asked for every one of their events. I mean, even the original CCL, which was more the Celebrity Clash League, where this one is more of the Community Clash League. The original one was Europe was always asking for it, and that one was easier to do because all you had to do was pull in some decent name streamers, some people among that area, and it would be easy to pull people in. There's a lot of Europe streamers that could be pulled in for that. Yeah. That one would have been much easier to run, and they still didn't do a Europe version of that. And so I think that I think this was a good like kick for Master Clash to go, okay, they're running a whole league and it's getting a lot of attention, which it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can do this too. And so I think it's great. Me personally, I think CCL is great. I wish I could have participated in more of a role than I have. And same thing with Masters Clash. Like, I think it's awesome, and I wish to participate in any way that they would have me, because they are both awesome things to happen to this community, and I see only growth coming from these, especially since a lot of the Europe players they'll be able to play at their best. I mean, their ping is back down to 30 as opposed to 150.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, if we could get like a CCL up to finals and a Master Clash up to finals and a LAN event with the winners, we get a little bit of a Worlds event, that would be my dream. Or at least my hot's dream.
You might have overlap from two sides, but they'll have to figure that out.
Well, yeah, and initially, yes, but I think once like a year goes by and we've got Master Clash running a lot on this side and CCL running on this side, it might separate a little bit more, where the European players might not see the need to go and try to play CCL at the same time as Masters Clash. Yeah, so I'd imagine there will be a CCL season 2 just because of all the success, which means that I do think it's just going to be something ongoing that teams will just keep playing. They'll play CCL seasons are something like 12 weeks, and so it's just like, I mean, you can run 2 or 3 seasons a year for CCL, and same thing with Masters Clash. There over the course of like half the year, so you could run 2 of those, and you could just have seasons going all the time. I think if you enjoy Heroes of the Storm esports, this is almost a better time than it was before, just because before you had pretty big breaks in between HGC seasons and summer seasons, where now you have NGS is pretty much bigger than it's ever been before. Heroes Lounge is doing great. It's grown so much in the last few years, and now you have these 2 major events, and it's just ongoing esports. Pretty much almost any time you click on Twitch, unless you're at like really odd hours, you're gonna find some esports event to watch, which is awesome.
Yeah,
and Chili Mountain, all of Chili Mountain's events too. I mean, and that's another thing that it's just like there's always esports events going on, I feel like.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up exactly. We're planning our next event. It's still in the works, and we're just like, when do we do it? Like, there's esports this weekend. So we took inspiration from Caldor's event, the Masters Clash, and they did it Thursday, Friday back to back. So we're going to do that. But yeah, it's a good problem to have. There's so much Heroes of the Storm, like bubbling success everywhere that there's too much. But so one thing that popped into my head. So you said you'd want to take on a greater role in the current Heroes of the Storm scene, and kind of as these like leagues get bigger and viewership gets bigger and sponsors take interest and kind of like money flows into like orgs a little bit, probably paid coaching roles will start bubbling up or popping up. Maybe paid psychologist roles down the line once there's a little bit more money for the, bare necessities covered, like your coach, your team manager, like the absolute minimum. Is that something you would want to fill? Like, would you ever consider a coaching role or like something like in that area?
So, I mean, I do coaching on my end. And it's actually what a lot of people don't know is that's actually where the majority of the money from this whole YouTube thing comes from. A lot of, of where the money side, because it is about content creators, they might as well know this as well. As a YouTuber, generally, most people think you just make videos, you get paid because of the ads that run. But the ads are actually like one of the smallest amount of income if you're doing YouTube correctly. You should have sponsorships. You should have products that you might be pushing. You have events that you get paid to go to. There are a lot of podcasts that pay to have content creators on. There are a lot of events. I got paid to go to BlizzCon. I got paid to go to Level Up Expo. And so that's a side of it, but all of that is actually kind of trumped by the amount that I coach. And this is part of the reason why I didn't accept a coaching role in CCL. And I did get asked, and I didn't accept one because the amount of money that I make from normal coaching, it just wouldn't be feasible for a CCL team growing right now. Now, when these teams start making a lot more money, I could certainly understand hopping in there as a coach. I definitely 100%. But as it stands, my coaching does really well. Last year, I coached over 150 people. I coached 35 teams.
Wow,
and
big number.
and so yeah, and it's like, and there's probably a lot more than that. Those are the ones that are on my Excel sheet, and I put them on an Excel sheet because I want to track and improve as a coach, make sure that the advice I gave works. If it doesn't work, I never give that advice again. And so yeah, it has worked. I've been coaching since I started, and just this last year, I mean, of those 35 teams that I've coached in their respective divisions, every single one has hit playoffs. And 5 of them have won, 4 of them got second place. I mean, it's really, I feel like it's really worked for them. Individual players, they've moved up on average. It's like 1.5 tiers. So like from like gold to like mid plat, bottom of gold to mid plat, from like middle of gold to diamond. Like it's definitely helped. And I've improved as a coach as well. So yeah, I mean, if I could be a psychologist for a HOTS team, number one, that's definitely what I'd want to do. If I could be a coach, for sure. If I could be an analyst again, why not? Even just a caster and help out these events where I can. That's always something that I look for. I just like to participate in these events because it's like, even the paid part aside, just participating in growing events is something that's so much fun because it's like you were there. Like I was there the original seasons of CCL, and it's like that cool. To me is huge. Yeah. And then the same idea is like I feel like some of the earlier tournaments you guys were running, I was there and I got to cast them. And so like stuff like that, like now you guys are doing these huge tournaments in like League of Legends and Heroes of Storm and all this other stuff. And it's like, I just like I like participating in these like growing events and helping where I can. If there's anything that I can help, I always want to participate. And that's just the biggest thing about it is, sure, a paid role would be great, but if I have time to just help out here or there, I always want to.
So what kind of we have one of our like chat questions. Curious as to what type of advice made it into the never again column in your Excel sheet. If you remember, or
yeah, you know, there's one of the things that I used to do, and I've stopped relatively. The most recent one that I've removed or at least changed is I used to just kind of just go through so once I got it down to what I needed to do all the time, I started just kind of going from an order to one to the next to the next to the next. And I didn't stop to ask, like, do you actually understand what I'm talking about? You know, like, and so that's a big one. Another one that is really common, and this is going to get into the whole 4 mistakes you might be making. But one of the ones that's like very common for Heroes of Storm coaches is rewinding and replays. And this has been the biggest thing that I've removed early on when I realized that this isn't actually helping. If you can't rewind in a real game, you're not going to be able to teach that much by rewinding in a normal like thing. And this one took me a lot to break because it's so common in the scene, and it's something that's so easy for coaches to go, let's go back and really talk about what just happened here. And it's like, no, you need to be able to teach in general rules. You need to be able to teach in a way that because teaching people what not to do doesn't teach them what to do. And so you need to kind of break that habit of just watching replays all throughout coaching and going, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. You need to give them general rules. And once you have people doing everything that they should be doing at every minute of the game, they're no longer doing what they shouldn't be doing. And so I've changed a lot of my coaching away from what you shouldn't be doing to more general rules. Double soaking when there's no objectives going on, making sure that you get a wave of soak and then a camp and then a wave of soak so you don't ever miss the waves, which are experience you can't ever get back. Camps you can always pick up later. Waves, they disappear. General rules for things like tanks would be try to CC targets your team's already attacking, because if you CC a target your team's not attacking, the CC runs out by the time people have traveled to that target. And so it's almost better to just wait and kind of just try to dodge abilities and stuff. And then right as your team gets close enough and starts attacking, you stun, and it's more likely to lead to kills. So I've started teaching more in general rules. And there's just a lot of little things like that I've slowly removed from coaching. And there's been some things that there's been one that I've been doing more recently that I'm starting to look more harshly at, which is I've been having people pick 5 heroes and I tell them to play one hero 25 games in a row, and then play another hero 25 games in a row, and another hero 25 games in a row.
Our league coach does that. Does that exact tactic.
And it's the problem with this method is it does seem to work over time, but it's really bad in the beginning. And so I'm wondering if there's a way that I can make it to where it's a little bit more friendly in the beginning, because number one, you get flamed a lot and it feels bad. Yeah. But number two, people tend to lose a lot because they're playing heroes not when they're in the best like role or map or anything. They tend to lose a lot until they're done doing that and they go back to their normal routine. And then when they go back to their normal routine, they usually shoot up in rank. So it's like, my only concern is that someone's going to, and this has happened before, and this is part of the reason that my stats used to be 2 full tiers on average is how much you would move up in rank, and now it's 1.5, is I've had people that will get about halfway through that and then just stop and just go back to normal. And I don't want that, because it is something that does work. It's just, so I'm trying to find a way to maybe eliminate that, but keep the what it teaches in the whole coaching. But I might need to find a way to like fix that a little bit. But otherwise, that's been the one thing that I've been watching very carefully over the last like 4 or 5 months, is like finding ways to encourage people to stick through it, or finding ways to remove it but still keep the same lessons that it teaches.
It sounds like something that will definitely work, but like the discouragement factor and the fun factor and like all of that stuff is like, it could be pretty harsh. But I think it would work. You know, if you play 25 games in a row on Greymane, you're going to be better at Greymane. Yeah. So that sounds cool. So I guess that takes us to about an hour. This was an awesome first episode. Thanks so much for joining us, dude. This was fantastic having you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me in again. It's another thing that I was so excited when you were like, we're starting a podcast. We want you on episode 1. I was like, oh, wow. Like, this is another thing that I feel like I'm getting in on the ground floor. I get to help out. Yeah. I get to participate. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, we really appreciate it for sure. Is there, I guess for sure, everybody, if you haven't followed youtube.com/NotParadox, you messed up, but you can fix it now. go to youtube.com/NotParadox, hit subscribe. Is there anything else you want to kind of shout out or anything?
No, that's definitely good. You guys can Google NotParadox if you want to follow me anywhere else. I do have a Twitter. I don't post as much as I should. Yeah, I mean, definitely check out anything. If you've got any recommendations, I do also listen to those. Sometimes the video ideas I don't do just because it's like might just be too much work. But if you do have any ideas, for sure, send them over.
Yeah, for sure. Or Sidkitten, do you have anything else you want to shout out as well?
And yeah, you guys know me, Sidkitten. You can follow me at It's Me Sidkitten on all my socials.
Yeah, and then me as well, Chillrogg on all socials, whatever, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Thanks again, guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see everybody next week. Catch you later.